Hello. I'm back again. The second process under initiation is identify stakeholders. So now, who is a stakeholder? The definition of stakeholder as per PMBOK is anybody who is affected positively or negatively by doing a project or by delaying a project is a stakeholder. I'll repeat again. Anybody who is affected positively or negatively by doing a project or by not doing a project is a stakeholder. So that covers a lot of people. Now, if you consider the PMP certification as a project, now who all are the stakeholder? So we have PMI coming in as a stakeholder, yourself as a stakeholder, the Prometric Testing Center is the stakeholder, the organization, your own organization, if they are sponsoring you, they are stakeholders, maybe your family is a stakeholder, me, the instructor, is a stakeholder, maybe Naukri.com is a stakeholder, LinkedIn.com is a stakeholder because your profile is changing. Maybe your peers could be stakeholders, maybe your team members could be stakeholders. The list is pretty big. So in initiation, the first thing we do is we come out with a stakeholder register, which is nothing but the list of stakeholders. Now, PMBOK is giving a very nice way of classifying the stakeholders into quadrants based on two parameters. One is the power of the stakeholder to influence your project. One is the power, and here it is the interest of the stakeholder in your project. So we get a set of people who have lot of power in the organization to influence the project. At the same time, they have very high interest in the project. We call it as high power, high interest group. Typically, the sponsor of the project will fall into this category because they are funding the project. They have a lot of interest into the project. So they have high interest, high power group. Then there could be a high interest, low power group. They have a lot of interest in the project, but then they don't have a lot of authority or power to influence the project. The typical end users may fall in here. Maybe if you consider the PMP certification, the trainer can be there. See, definitely I have a lot of interest in your PMP certification, but then if you don't write the exam, I will not be able to force you into the exam or ask the status and stuff like that. So I have a lot of interest in your project, but the power to influence your project is very low. We call it as high interest, low power group. The typical end users and all those things part. But then these people, if they collectively come together, they are the opinion leaders. Collectively they may have some power, but individually they don't have power, they have only interest. Then we have another category that is low interest and low power category. Low interest, low power category. So we need not really worry about them. They don't have much interest in the project and they have low power as well. Then we have this high power, low interest category. High power, low interest category. Maybe an example could be the customer's CEO. He has a lot of power, and at the same time he may not be that interested in your project because your project is just one of the projects for him. So this is the high power, low interest group. Now this has a direct bearing on the communication plan and the project strategy. Now we should ensure that this high power, high interest group, they get a weekly update of the project. They may not ask for it, but still we must send that weekly update. Then we have this high power, low interest. We should ensure that they get a monthly update at least. And then we have this high interest low power group. Please ensure that they get at least a quarterly update. And then we have this low interest low power group. Oh, we need not, even if we don't communicate with them, it is pretty okay. So first thing, we come out with the risk register, then classify them into 4 categories of high power high interest, high power low interest, high interest low power, and low power low interest. And based on that, we can develop a communication strategy. Now here the key is, when we classify, before we classifying the stakeholders into this high power high interest, high power low interest, high interest low power, and low power low interest quadrants, we should understand the stakeholders organization structure. Like if the stakeholder is coming from a functional organization where the project manager's authority level will be very, very low. So if you get a stakeholder, if you're dealing with the customer's project manager, and if the customer's organization is a functional organization, most probably that project manager will fall into low power and high interest category. Or you are dealing with a supplier which is a projectized organization, then if you're dealing with the project manager of a supplier, which is a projectized organization, then that particular stakeholder will be most probably high power and high interest. Then we have this matrix organization which falls into strong matrix, weak matrix, and balanced matrix. So if one of your stakeholder has this matrix structure and you get a coordinator from their side for the project, and if it is a strong matrix, the project manager will have more authority than the functional manager. If it is balanced matrix, then the project manager and the functional manager will have same kind of authority. And if it is weak matrix, the project manager will have lesser authority than the functional manager. So let me summarize. The second process in initiation is identifying stakeholder and doing stakeholder analysis. The first thing we do is we come out with a stakeholder register and then classify the stakeholder into these quadrants of high power high interest, high power low interest, high low power low interest, and high power low interest kind of categories. While doing this, before doing this, we should understand the organizational structures of these stakeholders organizations, like functional, strong matrix, weak matrix, balanced matrix, and projectized, because these organizational structures have big influence in determining the power and interest of the stakeholder. So generally I consider it as, I call it as organizational palmistry. Now if you understand an organizational structure, then we can define or we can predict the power equations of the organization. Thank you very much.